This is Covering the Spread, part of the FanDuel Podcast Network.
Wild Card Weekend is officially here. We have got some fun games on the docket across this weekend, Saturday through Monday. It's time to break it all down and get you ready for what should be a thriller of a card. We're going to talk to Meghan Payton today, pick her brain on the biggest matchups, and more to get you ready for her favorite bets for Wild Card Weekend. This is Covering the Spread, a FanDuel Research podcast. My name is JimSannes. I am a managing editor for FanDuel Research. Joined here, as mentioned, by Meghan Payton. You can find her on X at Meghan Payton 7. Check out her work over on FanDuel TV. Meghan, we are on to Wild Card Weekend. Happy playoff season to you. How you doing?
Happy playoffs. Feels like we get the holidays all over again. And it's so much fun betting when we get to the playoffs because obviously the stakes are higher than the regular season, but you know that there's just going to be that extra motivation, that extra grit. So I think that there's some really good leans and some players that you can be eyeing out this wild card weekend, and excited to talk about it with you.
I think it's going to be a fun slate. I'm excited for specifically the Sunday night game for me because I love Baker Mayfield and I love Jaden Daniels. So it's a slate made for me, and I'm very happy about that selfishly to break things down with you for today. We'll dive into some of those key matchups, letting you know Megan's thoughts on. We'll dive into that Sunday night game. We'll talk about Packers, Eagles as well. Steelers, Ravens, see if the Steelers can at least keep it close enough to cover, and then get Megan's best bets for Wildcard Weekend in just 1 second. But first, a reminder to make sure you are subscribed to Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc. Just search for Covering the Spread. Hit subscribe if you like what you hear. It was a 5-star rating and review as well. Of course, my thoughts on all 6 games already posted back on Monday, going game by game, laying out my models, spread and total predictions for these games, again on the Covering the Spread podcast feed, but also on the YouTube page as well. Our DFS picks for this weekend are up there, and our player prop show with Austin Swaim will be tomorrow 10 a.m. Eastern. So turn on the notifications on the YouTube page to know as we go live each and every week. Football fans, buckle up, because for the first time ever, we got 5 straight days of playoff football action in college and the pros, and FanDuel is celebrating with the great playoff payoff. That's a no sweat same game parlay every day for all 5 days with a no sweat SGP. You can combine your bets for the same game for a chance at even bigger winnings. And if it doesn't hit, you get a bonus bet back. So not only do we get to watch 5 straight days of playoff football, but that's also 5 chances to win big. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app today to be a part of this epic run. It's the great playoff payoff, and it's only on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas, an affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in D.C. Opt-in required, minimum 3-leg parlay required, refund issued as a non-withdrawable bonus bet that expires 7 days after receipt. Max refund $5 unless otherwise specified. Restrictions apply, including token expiration. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. Visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelpline.ma.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Now, Megan, we have not gotten to talk about the playoff seeding with you yet because we've not talked to you since the end of NFL Week 18 yet. So before we talk about the games, I want to talk to you about the futures market. Are there any futures catching your eye now that we know who is seeded where for the playoff run?
Of course, Jim. You know there's always a market for futures, and I really feel like it's wide open this year, which is great in terms of futures betting. I think we can't deny the Lions, and the fact that they're still plus 320 to win the Super Bowl feels really fair to me. I mean, we saw an amazing display of who they are and who they're going to be in the postseason against the Vikings last week. And you think that they're going to get a little bit better even on defense. We saw that with Alex Anzalone back, and that really helped contain Minnesota's offense. I think that it's worth, if you don't have a futures ticket yet on the Lions, I know you wish you could have gotten it at a better price. Plus 320 is still a good number. And then outside of that, I am looking at NFC conference, and I like the Bucks at plus 920. Now, it's not going to be the easiest of paths for the Bucks, but this offense is incredible. We'll get into this game here in a bit, and you mentioned it, probably one of the more exciting games of Wild Card Weekend. I really think that we're seeing a Bucks team led by Baker Mayfield that has that extra fight. Jalen McMillan is the guy I feel like, targeting the last few weeks, and I've got to bet on him for this week. But it's, again, when you're looking at the postseason in the NFL in comparison to the other sports, any team can show up any game. It's not a best of 5 series, which is why you can get those futures tickets in on a team like the Bucks that, yes, if they were to play the Lions 5 times, the Lions are going to end up going to the Super Bowl. But because of the way the playoffs are, which is why I love betting on the NFL so much, really any team can get there. So I would be throwing in a little, Super Bowl at least appearance ticket on the Bucks at plus 920.
Well, I like the way you did this, though, because you don't have to worry about Mahomes or Lamar
Yeah.
or Josh
Yeah.
Allen. If you bet the
We put those
NFC for
aside.
the Buccaneers, you can just say, we're going to let them sort that out. I'll cash out before then. We'll be good to go.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about all of the juggernauts waiting the Super Bowl. I just need the Bucks to get there. And like you said, they've got juice. And they've got upside because of that passing offense. Like, let's say hypothetically they win this round. Eagles win. They're facing Philadelphia in the next round. That's a really tough spot, but they're alive in that game because of how good that passing offense is. And they can be alive against anybody. They already beat Detroit on the road once this year. Why not twice? So I think that's what I like about them, is that offense gives them upside to hang with anyone. The NFC to me is a lot more wide open because you don't have a Mahomes, you don't have an Allen or a Jackson in the NFC side of things. So I think for taking swipes at, longer shots, I want to do so via the NFC. And the Buccaneers, they get a home game plus 950. All the other teams that are at home, the Rams are 12-1, I guess, but like, you look at the Eagles, they're plus 320, Lions the bye plus 130. Like, should the Bucks be longer than the Vikings? I kind of don't think so, personally.
Yeah. And look, I was high on the Vikings last weekend, and I'm not going to say they're frauds, because I don't think that the Vikings are frauds.
Right.
But it just shows you that when we're looking at the NFC conference, it is open. And if you can get in a shootout with one of these teams, it's all offense. You know what I mean? And that's what matters. Obviously, the Lions being at the top for a reason. But I think that you kind of cover your base by getting a plus 320 Lions to win the Super Bowl. It doesn't make sense to probably just take them to win the NFC.
Right.
You're only getting it at plus 130. But then you go and get a little extra long shot ticket. And I think with the health that we're seeing from Tampa, I love the Packers, but the Christian Watson injury scares me. I think Tampa makes sense. And now at plus 950, it's fun. It's the playoffs. Have a little bit of fun with some of these longer shot teams.
And it's Baker. I'll bet
it's
on
Baker.
I'm happy with that. That's going to make me happy for sure. Okay, so Meghan is on the Bucks plus 950. One more time, Baker, come on through for us yet again. Let's talk about some of these games now across Wildcard Weekend. Let's begin things with the 3-match between the Steelers and the Ravens right now at FanDuel Sportsbook. Ravens favored by 9.5. Total in this game is at 43.5. No Zay Flowers for this game for the Ravens. He was ruled out earlier on Tuesday. With Zay in that rematch, the Ravens were able to kind of coast in the fourth quarter there. Steelers did win the first matchup, though, and they did keep it close for about the first half in the second matchup. Pretty big spread. Third time they face each other. Meghan, how do you see things playing out here in game 3 of this series?
In terms of the spread of this game, I see the Ravens winning this game. But in terms of the spread, I feel like I've gone back and forth on this. You can make a solid case either way. The case for the Steelers is it's Mike Tomlin. You don't think he's going to put up a fight here, despite the offense looking pretty bad the last few weeks, going 4 games losing streak headed into the postseason. It's still Mike Tomlin. It's still a defense that's going to compete. But then on the other side, it's Baltimore. And this is arguably the best team still to me, maybe in the NFL, who can do it regardless of Zay Flowers in or out. So I actually did stay away from the spread in this game. And instead, I'm taking Lamar Jackson over his rushing yards. This has been a kind of a prop I've targeted for a lot of this season. It's been one of his lowest rushing yard seasons, but it's still over 50 yards per game. And in the playoffs, Lamar Jackson, I mean, what's he going to do? He's going to take off and use his legs at all times. He averages over 86 yards per game in the postseason, and we're still at 50.5. So this might be actually one of my favorite bets for the entire wild card weekend. And I think that it's going to be difficult for the Steelers to contain him completely without Zay Flowers. Obviously, that eliminates the pass game just a little bit. Well, luckily you've got the best dual threat quarterback in the league, and Lamar is definitely going to utilize that against the Steelers.
So you reference this, but I do want to read it off people because it's kind of absurd how much Lamar has run in the playoffs. He has played 6 postseason games, 54 yards in his first game, 143, 136, 34, 154. So he's gone over 50.5 yards in all of them but one. And that one was back in 2020. They lost 17-3 to the Bills.
He's doubled it.
Right.
He's doubling in some of these games. He's going double than what
Exactly.
the prop market is at. It's crazy.
So do you consider alt markets for this one too? Because like,
why wouldn't you? Yeah,
I think it's
honestly,
worth looking at.
Let's say if you were to go 100 plus, what's
9
the line there? I mean, okay, this is the funniest thing is that we just gave a big endorsement for the Bucks to win the NFC at plus 950, Lamar Jackson to run for 100 yards, and we're getting that at plus 900. I really do. I think, when you look at a game like this where the spread is so massive, and it's honestly not fun for me to bet on a spread that's that big because you're either needing to blow out one way or the other if you're on the Ravens, and you need the Steelers to keep it close. This is a game where go and look at those alt markets. I would absolutely put this line up to 70 to 80, but for fun for the wild card weekend, it's not that crazy for him to have 100 plus rushing yards.
I also will say, if you scroll around, you can find some weekend specials, and you can see like the player to lead this weekend in rushing, and it's across all 6 games. And I believe last I checked, Lamar was 47-1 to have the most rushing yards across the entire round. Let's see if it is still at 47-1. Yeah, 47-1. Jane Daniels 42, frankly, is not the worst. I think every quarterback is underrated in this market, to be quite honest with you, because of how often we see quarterbacks run during the playoffs. You see the intensity ramped up and stuff like that. Jane Daniels 42-1, Lamar 47. Not as into Hurts 75 because he's more of like a short yardage kind of bulldozer kind of guy than like a massive yardage kind of person. But like Lamar 47, Jaden 42. I think both those are interesting. But like, again, you mentioned Lamar 9-1 to have 100 plus yards. He's done that in half of his postseason games. Like,
it's not that wild. And remember last season, I feel like obviously the big talk about the Ravens losing last year in the postseason was that they abandoned the run game. Yeah. Now, with Lamar, you can see design runs and you can see him just take off, but it has to be a big focus. So yes, we're going to expect a lot from Derrick Henry as well, but rely on that run game against a Steelers team, extremely well. I love the overs, and I really do. I mean, honestly, I might get off this call and have to jump on 100 plus alt bet for Lamar in the postseason.
In Todd Monken and in Lamar Jackson, we trust. Lamar Jackson, 100 plus yards, 9-1, but also, again, as you mentioned, the 70 to 80 alts in play too. The baseline 50.5 for Lamar for this weekend. Let's talk about our second game. That is the Green Bay Packers taking on the Philadelphia Eagles right now, FanDuel Sportsbook. Eagles favored by 4.5, and the total in this game sits at 45.5. Now, Jordan Love got into full practice on Thursday, so I thought that was pretty encouraging. No Christian Watson here, though. Eagles at full strength. Everybody's good to go for this one. Can the Packers keep this one close enough to cover, or is it fly, Eagles fly all the way with the spread as well?
You know I've got a bet on the Packers to cover here because I've got a futures preseason bet on the Packers to win the Super Bowl. So
Uh-huh.
yes, the bias is there, and I've also given a complete faith in the Texans. So I'm back on just Packers team. But look, the Eagles are healthy, and it's tough. They're playing great football. You're seeing a fully healthy squad, offense, defense. But for the Packers, all year long, the talk was they don't have a true wide receiver one.
Yeah.
And so it's funny because now Christian Watson's out and now everyone's like, oh, well, they can't keep up because their top receiver's out. Well, don't forget, Matt LaFleur's able to design different situations in place for all the kind of receivers. Yes, Watson has kind of emerged the last few weeks and he's been that big explosive threat, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see that, turn into a Romeo Dobbs kind of game, or if we see Josh Jacobs more in the passing game. So yes, I've got the Packers to cover, and I've got Josh Jacobs anytime touchdown at plus 100. Touchdown machine, especially the last few weeks. I know the Eagles arguably have the best defense in the NFL, but I think they're just going to give him so many scoring opportunities, whether it be in those little screen passes or obviously on the goal line. He can score from anywhere on the field. And I mean, when's the last time we saw Josh Jacobs at even money for an anytime touchdown? I was having to go first half touchdowns the last
Right.
few weeks of the season for it to even make sense.
Right. And even money makes sense to me because I'm also on the Packers in this game. I have
Let's
the
go.
Eagles here by 2.9, so I do have them favored, but it's
Yeah.
not as big as where the market is at. And that's because this passing offense has been efficient, and they've had very few games where all their pass catchers have been healthy. I mean, Christian Watson missed games earlier on this year. Dobbs missed some games. Jaden Reed has been active, but he's been like banged up at times too. So they haven't had a large sample where they've all been healthy. So once we got the green light that Jordan Love, he was okay, that's where I was willing to actually be like, okay, I'll buy in what my numbers say. And my numbers say to back the Packers here at plus 4.5. I don't mind the money line, frankly, for the Packers plus 198. Like, again, the Eagles deserve to be favored. They are favored in my model, but what I like about the money line personally is that it safeguards me in what is, I think, a pretty risky bet to bet against Jalen Hurts, to bet against this defense, which has been unreal recently. So I want to safeguard myself against that risk, which is why I like the money line of plus 198. 4.5 is a big number. So we're getting a lot of flexibility there. So I think that definitely justified to go that way. But I think that what I would say is worth considering at least the money line as well.
Oh yeah, I'll absolutely endorse the money line. And again, it's hard to bet against the Eagles, but I mean, the Packers, this is a rematch of the Brazil game where we saw Jordan Love go out and he's going to be okay. Obviously, there was a lot of question marks about Jalen Hurts in this game too, concussion protocol, but he might be a little bit sloppy having not been able to play though. You think about the rest time, well, not necessarily always great, and it might take him a little bit to adjust here. I think that it could be closer than you think. I definitely wouldn't talk you off a money line bet, and I've got to back my guy Josh Jacobs.
The Packers first half spread plus 2.5 even money too. The Eagles have not been tremendous on their opening drives throughout this year. So I think the Packers early, kind of like that rust factor you alluded to, could be in play too. Megan is on the Josh Jacobs anytime touchdown prop, even money at FanDuel Sportsbook, and taking the Packers plus 4.5 at minus 105. Final full game I want to dive into with you here, Megan, is the Commanders at the Bucks. Popcorn is ready for Sunday Night Football. Right now, the Bucks favored by 3. Total in this game is up at 50.5. From a fan perspective, I could not be more excited about this game. But what's the read on it from a betting perspective?
Oh, I'm right there with you, Jim. This is going to be such an exciting game. I like the Bucks here, so I like them to win. I like them to cover. We mentioned this offense as of late. I mean, they're 6-1 in the last 7 games headed into the postseason. Baker Mayfield, you could argue he wants it more than any other quarterback playing in the postseason. It's the underdog mentality, and he's finally found that franchise, obviously, that's buying in on him. And we've seen the defense hold their own as well. I think we talk so much about Tampa's offense because you've got guys like Mike Evans, Baker Mayfield, Kate Otten has had a fantastic season. But the rushing defense really benefits them in this matchup against the Commanders, who have been relying obviously on that run game. I think it's going to make it a little bit difficult on a rookie quarterback and Jaden Daniels, who's, yes, had a great season, but I think Tampa has the edge here. And I don't know why I've loved the touchdown bets, or at least the touchdown markets for Wild Card Weekend. Jalen McMillan, I've been on him the last few weeks, and he has definitely put me in the green the last few as well. 7 touchdowns the last 5 games. He has over 300 yards in those last 5. He's a really good route runner. He's been a really good threat. Another young player that Baker's been able to rely on, and it's still at plus 175. He's had a touchdown the last 5 games, at least one. He's putting up multiple touchdowns in those games as well. I mean, this to me is a really, really good value on a young player that, yes, in the postseason, it's going to be all lights and everything. But I love Tampa, and I obviously took them at a price to win the NFC. So it all starts here in Wild Card Weekend against the Commanders.
It definitely does. And I think that's pretty enticing. Like you said, McMillan has been a playmaker throughout the latter stretch of the year. They didn't have Kate Otten, and McMillan stepped up in a big way. Like, they needed someone to step up there with no Godwin, no Kate Otten, and credit to McMillan because he did. Mike Evans talked after the game on Sunday about how he's been mentoring McMillan, trying to, teach him the craft, and no better mentor out there than Mike Evans. Now, talking about the Bucs, there have been 132 times this year where my model has shown value on a spread. 9% of those times have been the Buccaneers. That's an absurd number. Like, a baseline number for a team, like 1 out of 32 would be 3%. They've been triple that. It's been 12 separate times I have bet on the Buccaneers spread this year. I can't get there this week because I also adore the Commanders. So it's like a head and heart kind of thing. So I would have taken the over because I'm like, I don't care. I'm just going to root for points. I root for both offenses, but like, I do have the Bucs here by 3.2. So I am a bit above market with them as well. So I agree with you overall there because it is Daniels in his first playoff game. It's so tough for a rookie going on the road, facing an offense that won a playoff game last year. Were pretty competitive in their second playoff game last year too. Like, they've been tested. Baker won a playoff game with the Browns, the freaking Browns. Like, he's got this playoff pedigree. So it's a tough spot for them. And that's the main reason why I do see a bit of value in the Buccaneers. Not enough for me to bet it, but I do agree with your analysis that, like, they're a really good football team. McMillan's been playing great. So I think overall we're on the same page with this team. I need points. So I'll root for the McMillan touchdown as well.
And from a fan perspective, we're all hoping for points here. And I really do think this could be the most exciting game in terms of offense for the weekend, and perfect place, Sunday night football, kind of wrap it up before we get into our Monday game. I like it. I hope the Bucs get the win here. I like them to cover, and it's still at that 3. So that's kind of where I was looking at it for the week, is if it went to 3.5, probably wouldn't touch it. So I like that it's still at that field goal mark. Wouldn't mind the over as well, and hoping Jalen McMillan comes up big. But how crazy these young guys in the big stage. It's so fun, and that's what the NFL is all about.
Well, even Bucky last week scoring that clutch touchdown, like it is all the young guys for these Bucs. They've got Baker, they've got Evans, but they're one of the youngest offenses in football still because their offensive line, because of these guys like Bucky and McMillan. So been fun to watch this year. So we're rooting for points, rooting for McMillan, plus 175 for that touchdown, and Megan liking the -3, which is -105 at FanDuel Sportsbook. So a light 3 as well on the Buccaneers. We talked about half the games, Megan. Any other bets you like across a wild card weekend?
Vikings Rams. I don't know if I'm doubling down on my mistake of betting on the Vikings or if everyone else is just selling their stock too quickly. I like the Vikings. I like the Vikings to win straight up. So I've got to bet on them on the money line. I know they're on the road against the Rams, but this is not a team that should be a 5 seed. Honestly, 14 wins for the year. It wasn't a great showing against Detroit, but it was a divisional game, obviously, against the juggernaut Lions offense, who's arguably the best in the NFL, and a team that they know so well. I would not be selling all your Sam Darnold stock just yet. The Rams were barely in the playoff conversation a few weeks ago. And I think the fact, like, I looked at this line, and when I first looked for the week, I thought, okay, Vikings should be maybe 2, 3 point favorites. It's essentially a pick 'em game. I know you're going to give a couple extra points for the Rams on the road. Obviously, this game still trying to figure out everything with
Right.
the situation in LA. But no, I like the Vikings. I think Kevin O'Connell has done an amazing job this season. You still have the best wide receiver in the NFL in Justin Jefferson. So why not keep up with your Minnesota stock? Don't sell just yet. Detroit's really good, and I still think Vikings are better than the Rams.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gushing about Baker versus Jaden Daniels, but this is Kevin O'Connell against Sean McVay. That's pretty
How
sweet too.
crazy.
So yeah, that's a fun game too. We'll talk about that game more on Monday as well. I'll do a deep dive in that one, talk about some player props I like in that one too. But it should be a fun one. So we get to close things out with that Bucs Commanders game, then the Rams Vikings. Pretty good from a fan perspective for
Yeah.
the next couple of days. It's just football fans. It's going to be a sweet run for sure. That is Meghan Payton. Meghan, appreciate the time as always for you swinging by, breaking down your thoughts on Wild Card Weekend. Enjoy the football. Hopefully you're able to sit back and just kind of like enjoy both college football and the NFL stuff. Appreciate the time as always, and good luck to you. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you, Jim. Good luck with all your bets this weekend. Have fun. Enjoy it all. And we'll be back for divisional games coming up next week.
Could not be more excited for that. You can find Meghan on X at Meghan Payton 7. Check her out on FanDuel TV as well. I am on X and Blue Sky at JimSannes. You can find FanDuel Research on X at FanDuel Research. Big thank you to our YouTube producer, Justin Lane, for his work on the video side of things. Justin, good luck to the Penn State Nittany Lions tonight. Got to get that out there as too. And thank you all for tuning in. This has been Covering the Spread, a FanDuel Research podcast.